Well, welcome back to Krown's Crypto Cave. It is a nice little Thursday. Yeah, I think it's Thursday. Morning over here from bright and sunny Helsinki, Finland. As always, it's been bright and sunny ever since like 1:30 fucking a.m. It's crazy, and it's only getting even longer days. Anyways, plenty to talk about today as Bitcoin does hold the relevant levels that we spoke about yesterday. So I do want to follow up on that as far as the short and medium term timeframes go. Higher term timeframes still more or less unchanged, still the same going rate as far as that goes, although we'll reference it a little bit here. And on top of that, I'm not sure if I'll be on Twitch later today or not. I do need to get through a few other things, so perhaps I'll have enough time, perhaps not. I'm not so sure just yet. I will be on my gaming channel, of course, as well, for anyone who happens to give a fuck over there. Again, don't feel obligated to go check it out if you're not interested in like Total War or strategy games to begin with, but for those of you who are, check it out at Total Krown is what I'm trying to say. And you're more than welcome to hang out over there, as I could use some more friends over there. But again, for the people who are not, it's all good, man. It's all good. Anyways, plenty to talk about on Bitcoin, as I said, referencing the Krown trading application over here. I should say that Bitcoin dominance, very interesting. I forgot to look at the actual chart itself yesterday, but coming down to 64.5%. So I am curious to see if that higher low did hold or not on that tick. I believe that's probably right around it. So we will actually be focusing a little bit on that today. See if altcoin season is actually in the works or not. And on top of that, we do see that open interest still hanging within that range between 1.5 billion and about 1.7 billion. So realistically, I'm still looking for a breakage of the higher term time frame range. That would be 10.5 to the upside or 8,700 to the downside, alongside whatever read that the open interest prints. That's what I'm really interested to see. As far as that metric goes, from going on from here. But as I've been saying, it's still more or less new for myself, as we don't really have any prior history for this going back more than like a week ago. So more or less, I want to make sure that I want to make sure that I don't draw too many conclusions from it just yet. I want to really give it some more time to gather some more data, gather some more history, and then we can probably come up with some interesting reads on that. But for right now, just keeping a bird's eye view on it alongside our other top end metrics. All the other ones pretty much unchanged. Very minimal change in there. Fear and greed index actually popping up about 6 points to a 54, once again in the neutral zone, as Bitcoin attempts to hold in a higher low on our medium and lower term time frame. So let's go check out the actual price action analysis charts right here. Let me just make sure that I'm recording. I am recording and the microphone's working, so that's all good. And so let's start off with the daily. And let's go to a fresh chart as well. So as I said yesterday, Bitcoin above 9,300, I'm not bearish on that. We did test it a couple times on that first initial dump dildo that we saw on 1st of June. But after that, no breakages, and all tests were bought back on up relatively fast. What I think is also very sombering or very compelling is the fact that this wick that you see on only BitMexico going all the way down to 8,600 was bought up just about immediately. So anytime that I see something like this, where we dump about 16.69%, and then immediately are bought back on up to less than half of that initial dump, I am always very skeptical to see continuation from that. That is some damn good buy signaling right there. As we get some good crosses between the major moving averages, the 10 simple and the 21 of particular interest right here, gaining divergence away from each other nonetheless, and protecting even against that 9,300-ish level on the 21 exponential moving average itself on the daily. So to me, I am not bearish. I'm never bearish on an asset that is 1 in a daily uptrend and then 2 above the 21 exponential moving average on the daily as well. And in this case right here, we do have an uptrend. We have higher highs and higher lows, and Bitcoin's above the 21, and it also has a positive slope. Now lower peers are trading above the 21 confirmed. That to me was likely the opportunity. We spoke about this coming into the month of June, that it was very likely to come back down and backfill May's open. And we do see, we actually don't really see it on any exchange except for BitMexico, but you do see it on BitMexico coming all the way down to 8,600. Doesn't need to be that perfect, and I do think that there could easily be another swipe down to that region, but I want to be very clear about stating this. I cannot turn macro bearish here, not even macro bearish, but like long term, looking for more, multi-$1,000 worth of price action to the downside. I would say that I can't really turn bearish in that vein as long as we're constructing higher lows on the daily, and our last higher low was back around 8,700. So as long as that condition is met, I am cautiously somewhat bullish bullish, I suppose, with the shorter term time frames kind of getting a lot of the attention right now, just because they are really trying to confirm a higher low here, even on this, even on this more immediate trend, as you can see. Now, more importantly, we did hit our short-term target yesterday back around 9650-ish region. Now Bitcoin putting in some time sideways as momentum also does catch up on the short-term time frames. We do see 4-hour SOX popping back up. They will remain to the upside as long as Bitcoin price action is above 95.25. So that's well above that $9,300 pivot. Looking at the 3-hour, going to look actually even better than that at 94.71. Momentum remains the upside. 2-hour going to show 96.36. Still keeping that momentum, that short-term momentum to the upside, as long as above there. And hourly showing that momentum will once again regain to the upside if we can close this next hourly above 96.50. So what does that likely look like? Well, we do see a little bit of bifurcation here between the very low time frames like the hourly and bi-hourly versus the 3-hour and the 4-hour. What does that probably look like? We probably get another wick down to like 9,500, maybe 9,400-ish region. But even that area is just not that important right now. That's the problem with this on looking at the lower term time frames. Realistically, the biggest interest from even a low term time frame perspective is still 9,300. I stick by that, and I stick by that vehemently right now. So as long as Bitcoin's above there, I do look at this as likely just another higher low in the making following the trend. But if we do lose that area, I would look for very likely another test back down below 9,000, at the very least to 8,800-ish region. And realistically, that's the danger zone for Bitcoin, because if Bitcoin can even just go a little bit lower than that, below 8,700-ish region, even on a wick basis, that will create a lower low on the daily. And then now we likely have, or very likely have, a downtrend. And that's when I really do start to look for moves down, not just to 8,100-ish region, of which I do think that Bitcoin would very likely hit in that region, but also down to about 7,500 right here. Sorry, right around here, and in 6,900 from there, all historical bases before big bad breakouts and big bad breakdowns. So that also should naturally line up with our major fibs as well, of which we can do one right now, something like this is what I'd be looking for. We got the 382 right around 6,900. We got the 0.5 right around that 7,500-ish pivot, and the 618 a little bit above what should be the 8,100 pivot. But let me make sure that I actually get this right. Let's use bodies there and be consistent with it. Yeah, there we go, something like that. Okay, that's it right there, right on that 40. Well, no, we really want the 4,400 low right there. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so now we got the 0.5 at the 7,500-ish region. Nice on this historical horizontal right there. Beautiful. 618 at 8,100. Perfect. And we also got 382, actually lower than what I would expect at 6,750-ish region, but does create a nice little liquid zone between about 6,750 and 6,900-ish region. So all of those areas I like from a historical standpoint, but for right now, I do kind of favor the bulls, at least more immediately, or sorry, maybe not more immediately, as I do think that Bitcoin probably puts in some time going sideways within this region. But as long as as long as 9,300 is not broken to the downside, I don't even have really like medium term downside to be looking for it. Although, again, to be directly clear, if Bitcoin does break that area, or even just take out the low of 2nd of June, depends on which exchange that you're using. I think that GDX gets it rather well at 9270th region, right around that 9,300-ish pivot. Then I would look for extension, like I said, to the high 8,000s. But for right now, Bitcoin looks to be going sideways, constructively speaking. And I also want to bring up something that I don't typically look at, or it's not that I don't typically look at it, I just don't typically show it, although it is on my list over here. The Bollinger Bands are also in a nice positioning. I don't really have any major issues with this, taking everything else off and just focusing on these babies right here. Yes, we did get rejected from the top side band, which is typically going to be interpreted as a head fake, but to hold off of the median, the 20, which is just 20 simple moving average right here, as it retains a positive slope and tested multiple times over the last few days, that's not the time to be getting bearish. If we do break below this region, which by the way is right around that 9,300-ish pivot, then yeah, I would look, again, same sort of logic applies for all the things that I just said, but it doesn't really seem to be happening right now, and momentum oscillators do have a chance to really turn down here rather aggressively. We are actually going to see a potential jewel sell signal on the daily, so I could very well be wrong on this one. Very, 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 very well be wrong on this one. But we'll just have to really let the next day or two worth of price action play out. And I'd imagine that that's going to be basically held back by this median right here, right around that 94, 9,300-ish region. Especially on like a 12-hour closure. If that area gets violated, yeah, we probably do see a dual sell signal on the daily play out, and this one should be a damn good one and be good enough to get it back down to the low 8,000s and then probably back down to the mid 7,000s and maybe beyond. But for right now, I would be a little bit hesitant to say that, because as long as Bitcoin's above 9,300, I don't really see that as like a good trading edge. Below 9,300, yeah, now got some edge, got a very easy way to be managing that. And of course, this is not financial advice. I'm not a financial advisor, but in this case right here, we are going to see momentum oscillators on the daily potentially turn down as well. But let's see what would be needed in order to bring it back up to the upside. The next daily closure above about 99.50 will do it, actually. So keep that area in mind. If Bitcoin can close above there today, that would look damn good for immediate continuation back up into the 5 digits. And we could probably talk about 10,500 again and perhaps even beyond. But for right now, you can see that momentum will naturally come to the downside with any sort of a closure below 99.50. Let's see how that looks on the 12-hour. 12-hour also showing actually much higher than that, right around our last prior spike high at 10,250. So it is a little bit of a domino effect here, but I don't necessarily like how the lower term time frames is asking for more to get those momentum oscillators back up to the upside than the higher term time frame. So to me, that does say that if bears do want to take control, they do take control like this week, and they do have the ball in their court right now, and I expect to see that the probabilities are going to be lining up with the downside for the next day or two, and that's really going to be the bears' big chance, as we do see that we are coming, I believe, we are coming back down to a very, 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 very low read on historical volatility percentile after being redlined for a couple days there since the 1st of June. You can see that it's literally in single digits once again, which does say that we're getting cocked up to make another nice move. Anytime that we do get down to the single digits, I mean, that's precipitating, usually $500 plus moves. Last one was right around here before this move from 9,300 to 8,700. The last move before that was this area right here, going from 7,500 all the way to realistically like 9,500. A few days later, doesn't all happen on the same day, but does kind of sprint it off. Then this area right here going from 67 to 58. So these are actually pretty damn good moves right there. But I would say at the very least $500 move probably in the cards in the next couple of days. Does not imply direction, but momentum oscillators do. And I would say that for right now, it does look like if Bitcoin is going to reverse, it would happen this week. The real question is Bitcoin going to reverse? Well, as long as it's above 9,300, I don't really see that as even within the lexicon of the conversation, because, well, you can't really get bearish on an uptrend on basically every time frame up to like a fucking monthly. So there's that. Now, of course, going back to, do I want to go back to the daily? Let's actually take off these Bollinger Bands, put back on our beautiful major moving averages, put back on actually all of them as well. Let's go do a little bit of a dissection on this one, see what's new here, or if anything is new here. No, not so much actually. Just getting more and more divergence between all major moving averages. I still look at this as good, man. I still look at this as good. Golden Cross gains more and more power, as does the 2-day Golden Cross, as does the 12-hour Golden Cross. All major moving averages with all lower periods trading above higher periods and diverging with increasing strength actually as time goes on. 2-day still above the 10 simple. I just have I can't really get bearish on something that looks like this. Shit, I mean, even just going back and kind of referencing something that we've briefly been speaking about since since a long time, I suppose. But looking at this right here, not only do we have the Golden Cross on the 2-day total time frame, but even just looking at this white 200 simple moving average plus the yellow 21 exponential moving average, you can see historically speaking that getting into a more bullish posture has been very good for Bitcoin. Actually, let's go to a long, more historical chart perhaps. But anytime that Bitcoin's been above the 200 simple, generally good. And you can see that once it has a positive slope, those are usually your long-term bull markets. And likewise for the downside right here, calling the bull trap in 2014 and calling the switch up right here. Again, it's going to be a little bit more lagging because we are talking about a higher term time frame plus very high period moving averages. But you want that to get the long-term momentum. Same thing in 2018 right on over here. Once it got broken to the downside, not good. And then same thing when it got regained right on over here. And then using that 21 exponential moving average as more of a direct indication of the current strength, we can see that anytime that both of these guys have had positive slopes plus the lower period trading above higher period, well, generally good things have happened for Bitcoin. And seeing as Bitcoin's already come back down and tested this a couple times and held up valiantly, I mean, I feel like if it really wanted to dump, it had plenty of chances here late May, plenty of chances, just didn't dump. So fair enough. Looking at momentum oscillators as well, we are going to see 2-day Stokes close, I believe, today, and they're going to have a chance across the upside. They will confirm across the upside if price action closes above 9,400. So 9,400 being above that 9,300-ish pivot is interesting nonetheless, but still all within the same area, and also going to have a chance to confirm above the exponential as well on the 2-day RSI, of which the biggest read on the RSI that I'm really still following is this weekly long-term, almost year-long falling wedge formation, which did break out to the upside on CME chart in middle of May, retested and bounced up valiantly. So to me, this is likely to work its way into the bullish control zone. There's not really a measured move to be made on this, but it does typically imply that we are going to head in the other direction and stay there for a little bit of time. And so I look at this still overall good, plus the exponential on this getting above the breakout point. That's going to provide support right in that region. So I do like all of that combined together. It's still a long ways to go until Friday, which is just one day away. But looking at the weekly close right now, would this look good? No, definitely not. As far as the CMEs go, but I'd still like to see where we kind of end up tomorrow. So I expect something to actually happen in this next 36 hours worth of period, because bears are either going to take control, where we're going to see a nice big move down, probably $600-$700. Into the mid to upper 8,000s, or bulls are going to take back control, and we probably ended above 5 digits. So realistically, I do think that right now is actually a very interesting time in Bitcoin land, and only time will tell within the next about 36 hours. Like I said, 1 day and 14 hours to be exact. Anyways, okay, what else we want to look at while we're here? I want to also reference traditional markets. One of the reasons why I do have a little bit of an issue with getting overall bearish on Bitcoin is its correlation with traditional markets, which we've seen for the last 10 years. Again, I don't want to go through the full explanation on this, not to sound arrogant, but just check out my Twitter thread on it, because it'll explain things that are much better had in a more directed manner, rather than me just doing a 5-minute blurb on it here, which is not going to cover everything that really needs to be understood to fully and formally get that, and that's when you get criticism. Anyways, more importantly, looking at the monthly, I really like this monthly read right here. I do think that it's still very much possible it will come back down to 9,100 or 9,000 even, but that would very likely be a massive opportunity long term. I really like the way that momentum oscillators are starting to perk back up as well. We do see monthly RSI back into the bullish control zone above the exponential, and the exponential in the bullish control zone as well. Good. Plus monthly Stokes look like they're going to have a chance to grab a hold of the critical zone for the bullish control zone, which is usually going to be your strong read for continuation. I do think that this will be very likely making new all-time highs, as we've been saying, with last month's close being so strong. The question is it getting ready for a short-term pullback? And if it is getting ready for a short-term pullback here, or even medium-term pullback, what does that mean for Bitcoin? Well, it probably means that Bitcoin does it as well. So how would I judge this right now? Well, the last sort of breakout point that we have, even on a daily, is coming in pretty much in line with this last spike low that we see right around about 95.30-ish region. So I'll put an alert there. That's the area to hold, in my opinion. As long as NAS futures are above that region, I wouldn't, I would think that any sort of short-term pullback gets bought back on up, and what do you know, that's right around the 10 simple here. But if it does break that region, I would look for a return back down to the low 9,000 base. That's when I would look for the test down to 9,100 or maybe even 9,000 even. I'm not so intent on one of those numbers, just somewhere in that region, in that $100 region there, and then we can talk about potential bottoming action in that region. But as long as NAS is above that region, I look at this as still in an uptrend. I don't really see any real reason to short a melting up asset, although it is getting a little bit frothy here, that's for sure. No bearish divergence to be found on the daily RSI, by the way, which is kind of strange. Daily Stokes are still pointed north as well, although very interesting. And historical volatility percentile is geared up for a phenomenally face melting move. So whatever way it does move is going to be pretty fucking nasty. That means massively new all-time highs, of which 10,000 would be in the cards, or probably a return all the way back down here to 8,500, ultimately speaking, with a nice stop somewhere in the low 9,000s, between 9,000 and 9,100-ish region. So I would keep an intent eye on that, because it likely does line up with whatever Bitcoin does as well. That's just been the macro trend for the last 10 fucking years, and fair enough. Anyways, looking at E-mini futures for SPY as well, looking a little bit stronger here actually than NASDAQ, although we did hit our 313 target, backing off a little bit on the first pass from that blue box territory. I still would be overall bullish on this. No sense in shorting an uptrend right here, but same sort of read that we see on NASDAQ. It's calling up for a big bad move, and could it be due for a pullback here as well? Well, we don't see any bearish divergence even on a daily. Here's what like a 4-hour would show here. 4-hour does have some bearish divergence. Looks like. Let's zoom in perhaps. Just barely, yeah, but it does have it present there. So yeah, probably short-term pullback back down to like 308 region. But still, you know, the magic area for this one, kind of similar to NASDAQ above 99,000-ish region, would be about like 3,000. Nice round even number as well. If that area does get destroyed, I would look for a pretty intense pullback. At the very least, down to the 200 exponential average on this asset, somewhere right around 29.50. Personally speaking, I think it could go lower than that at about into the mid 280s. But again, NAS probably shows the way, and with that in mind, I'll just let the kind of market show itself in time. Remember, tomorrow is going to be the weekly close, and this, you know, a weekly close right here would be pretty damn good. We did say that 313 was likely to get hit, and I do think that short-term pullback is kind of to be expected from this region, although expectation is a terrible thing to have as a trader. The thing is that you know, this thing can come back down and fill low 3,000s and still remain overall healthy. So it's like, you know, I want to be careful with my words here, because short-term bearishness is not the same thing as long-term bearishness. And so as long as it's above that pivot that we just spoke about, then I don't really see any real reason to get, like, you know, looking for a move back down to the mid 280s. And we're about to get a pretty nice cross on major moving averages for the weekly as well, between the 21 and 55 right there. As you can see, last cross that we had, very similar situation, by the way, over here too, just about a year ago, in February 2019. Same sort of thing, you know, big intense drop, boom, buoys itself back up, and then melts its way on to new all-time highs. Same thing back on over here in 2016, quick stint below on the bearish cross, regains its footing relatively quickly, and then diverges away. Nicely done, my friends, nicely done. Melts itself up for massive new all-time highs. Same thing over here, same fucking thing, quick down, short-lived, and then once it gets a bullish cross, momentum is gained rather quickly to the upside. This one over here, the only one that really did stick around for quite some time. This was obviously 2007 and 2008, but you can see that once it got the bearish cross on this, it didn't even hint at a bullish cross for like another year, for going from January 2008 to October of 2009, worlds apart different. So I would look at 2950 as a good weekly pivot as well. If it does break that, I would certainly look back down to about 2850-ish region. But again, I'm not bearish on a chart that looks like this. I do think that would be more or less an opportunity, as this thing looks like it wants to try back towards the 325 region long term. It still looks very healthy to me. Again, that can definitely be changed, but you know, like Bitcoin, those levels are pretty damn well clear defined. So don't really think to you know, put too much else on it. Anyways, looking at gold coming down a little bit more aggressively, as we said, to 1700. Do you think that it bounces here? Probably short term. However, it is on a precarious place. If it does break below 1680-ish region, then I'd look for a return back down to low 1600s region, somewhere around the 200 exponential average, very likely by the time that it approaches it. It needs to bounce there though. Otherwise we might actually be looking at a big reversal. But for now, it still remain long-term bullish on it. Short term, looking for pullback. Especially if that level is destroyed. Again, 1680, 1685, depending upon how aggressive you want to be. Of course, again, not finished advice. I'm not finished advice. Let's go check out Cardano. I'm curious how this one's doing. Yeah, coming up to monthly resistance relatively soon, but probably has a little bit more upside here. I'm curious what the Bitcoin dominance chart looks like, because it did go down quite a bit. Very interesting. Very interesting. So we did take out last month's low. So that does suggest that we're going to put in a zone right here, somewhere down around 64.5%. So very likely that that alt's going to party out a little bit more. It doesn't necessarily convey though that we're going to see like a full-on alt party. Full-on alt party is below this area right here, below 63 3/4. If that area gets violated, then yes, very much going to be a nice time for alts. But for right now, I don't really have a strong opinion on this. I was very bullish on this coming into this week, but now that we've kind of taken out last week's low, this looks a lot more like a rejection rather than a higher low. And it is still within the context of a descending broadening wedge, so I think that there's major considerations there. If it did come back down to this region, I would at the very least be looking for a hard bounce. And that's probably going to push back alts versus Satoshis on the whole. As far as the greater market goes, I'm also curious what Link's doing as well, especially versus Bitcoin here. Let's see, did it hit that 50,000 Satoshi target? No, but it does look very constructive. Weekly looks very fucking good, and not only do I think that it's going to hit 50,000 Satoshis or 51,000 Satoshis, weekly close above there, and I would be looking at new all-time highs, probably to the tune of 70,000 Satoshis, maybe beyond. This is still the best chart in cryptocurrency land by far, bar none. A 3-year long uptrend ever since October 2017. Fucking amazing, man. Fucking amazing. Anyways, looking at Gbtc, do we have anything to be aware of here? Looks like a pretty massive rejection alongside a long-term trend line. But still, it does have the golden cross. I don't think it's too nasty to come back down and test the 10 simple. Daily momentum oscillators are back to the upside. Don't necessarily think that Gbtc though has as much relevancy as it did about a year ago. Mr. Butyrol also reaccumulating and working off a higher low as well. Still I need to see 252.5 be broken to the upside on at the very least a 4-hour closure. But if that does happen, I'd be targeting a move towards 290, 300ish region. I think that the weekly could potentially have a very nice close. Although you can understand that we did just hit the 200 simple, so if things are going to push back here, it would actually remain the downtrend. That would be pretty damn nasty and incredibly fucking bearish. Now, I should give the bears a really big piece of their due diligence as well, and that is this. The bears have the best thing going for them right now. Weekly downtrend, which has been a weekly downtrend ever since 20,000 in December 2017. I guess more so seen on a monthly, because we did have periods of uptrend here. But ever since more so June 2019 right here, it has been a downtrend on the weekly, and we came. It's no mistake that we came just short of putting in a higher wick high here on that last attempt to 10,500. This one getting up to 10,429. This one over here, of course, 10,500 spot 50 cents. So to me, that is significant and does give the bears their due diligence for right now. But as I've been saying, back above our critical level right here, which let me put back out on this, or where's my BitMexican chart? Yeah, there we go. Back above this level right here. Hold on. Hey, that's not the same chart that I had before. All right, well, whatever. We can do it like this. Any sort of a daily total close back into the 5 digits, and I would look for extension back up to 10.5. Realistically, that's where things become very, very interesting, because one of 3 scenarios will likely happen around that area. Or sorry, if one of 3 scenarios happen within that area, I would get massively bullish essentially. And the first one would be either a daily total close above this last high here in early February at 10,400. If that can happen, I would look for extension. I would look for extension to 11,500. If Bitcoin also just made a wick higher high than what we see on the early February high as well, at around about 10,500 as well, depending upon your exchange. Numbers do really matter here, and exchanges will differ. Then I would also be looking for another $1,000 move up to 11,500. Also, if Bitcoin closed a weekly on a higher high closure as well, which would only need to close above about 10,200 at this point, then I would be looking for that extension to the same area. Why am I picking 11,500? Well, realistically, there's just not much stopping you, historically speaking, from that region. Going all the way back to January of 2018 on that first major meltdown from 11.5 to 6,000. Historical area right here. Also, double top rejection a month later in February of 2018. Then about a year later over here, same thing in July 2019, and a month later in August 2019. As well. So this is institutional order flow dynamics at play, which suggests that would be the next major area from a long-term perspective. And I'm not necessarily going to make a statement on whether Bitcoin would break it or not. That's not for me to say. My opinion is irrelevant to this fact of what it does within that region. What's important is that if we actually do close above that region, we have a long-term, multi-year change behavior, also shown very well by the volume profile right here. As you can see, this is just a completely new ball game anywhere above. I mean, even 10,500. As you can see, as realistically, that does lead up to the 11,500 pivot right here, and then after that, just falls off the face the fucking earth. So I would look for Bitcoin to play off that from both a long-term perspective, from just historical areas, and also volume profile perspective as well. So So to me, that is, that is massively important, and it all kind of hinges upon that 10,500 last prior high right here. How Bitcoin responds around that region is likely to be insightful into its long-term trajectory, of which our first pass has so far been rejected. So fair enough. But looking at the weekly here, moving averages and also momentum oscillators are not bearish. First off, we're seeing all lower periods cross above higher periods, with the 10 simple looking like it wants to fall through this week. That's going to be coming above the right below the 8,700-ish pivot. So that is interesting. That will come into play very likely. But more importantly, long term, anytime that we've seen Bitcoin above the yellow 20-month exponential moving average, and the yellow 20-month exponential moving average also has a positive slope, that's been your long-term bull markets going back all the way over here to 2012 to 2014, telling you to get out. More importantly, on the bull trap right here, and then telling you to get back in right on over here in November 2015 before 300 all the way to 20,000. Same thing on this bull trap to 11,500 in February 2018, then back down to 3,100, and then tells you to, once again, to get long right in this $5,000 pivot right here before $14,000 a couple months later, and then more recently to the downside right on over here, and then more importantly to the upside more recently, it has regained the 21 exponential moving average. Not only that, we are seeing it cross above the green 55 as well. So generally speaking, just good things. More importantly, shows that the bottom algos are more or less on the buy side of this market for now, as they do diverge away from each other, although very, very early in its life as the 10 simple tries to crawl above. Anyways, that's all fun and games for right now. Let's go check out expected moves chart and see what the probabilities are. And I would imagine that the probabilities of a downside resolution are probably going to be more or at least higher than, well, actually, I don't know. Yesterday it did hold in quite well. So let's see. Let's make sure that we are on current. Yes, we are. This is 12-hour. 12-hour probability is actually favoring the upside, which makes sense. We're closer to 10,000, I guess 9,300, or are we? That's 350 away from 9,300. That's 350 away from 10,000. So yeah, 10,000, a little bit more likely, 15, almost 15.5% probability to close above there to the upside. To the downside, 11.5% on this next 12-hour closure in about 5 or so hours, I think it is. On top of that, we have the daily as well, which should be a continuation of that. A little bit closer, though, as you can see, above target probability is going to be 23.5%, whereas the below target probability is going to be a little bit under 21%. So it actually does favor the bulls. Now, yesterday, the bears were massively favored, and we did say that if the bears failed to take control sooner rather than later, this was going to naturally flip back into favor of the bulls. I mean, it's just a continuation of uptrend is what it looks like. So I'd pay particular attention to NASDAQ. I think NASDAQ's a little bit easier to get right now if we're going to just melt up to new all-time highs. If you see any sort of a move above the past prior high at 97.50, I'd expect Bitcoin to really break some major grounds here. Probably back above 10.5 and then initiate the next run to 11.5, which by the way is also one of the gaps on CMEs, which you've seen it a million fucking times, man. You don't need me to show you again. But now it's very interesting to see that actually the probabilities shift around this fast. So again, going back down to our regular price action charts on spot price action, realistically, all I have to add from yesterday's analysis to today is I am bullish on Bitcoin as long as we are above 9,300. That doesn't mean that we can't come back down. Again, looking at the shorter term, the shorter term momentum also kind of does suggest that we come back down and test around 9,500. Doesn't really do all that much for me on price action. Still, 9,300 is the magical area. If Bitcoin does break that to the downside, I'd look for extension all the way to upper 8,000 between 87 or 8,800 region. Anywhere below 8,700 is problems, as that does initiate the downtrend once again. I look for extension to 8,100-ish region after that, probably bounce there, and with continuation down to 7,500-ish region, probably another bounce there, maybe continuation after that down towards the 68, 6,900-ish region overall. That's something I want to see in real time, whereas the upside a little bit more interesting here. Any sort of a 4-hour total closure above 10,000 looks good to me. A daily closure above 10,000 looks really good to me. A 12-hour closure above 10,200 looks incredibly good to me. For continuation, at the very least, back up to 10.5, and at that point, it's been tested so many times that I would say probably likely to break it if that were to happen. But again, we're well and far away from that. For right now, I'll leave you at that. I want to wish you well once again. I want to wish you the best of the best and the happiest of the happiest. I'll be back on tomorrow for sure, maybe later tonight for some Twitch action. And until next time, take care.